How is it that a police officer can get in trouble for serious misconduct in one department, but then years later end up in another department with a clean record? Well, it happens more often than law enforcement agencies want to admit. And today we talk to KPBS freelance investigative reporter J.W. August about these so-called wandering officers and a disturbing case involving the El Cajon Police Department and the Navy. J.W., welcome.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you for having me here.
So to start, tell us about wandering officers and how they became such a problem.
It's something that's been going on for decades in California and across the country. It involves city police departments, sheriff's departments, and other law enforcement. When they have a bad apple, for obvious reasons, they have a big incentive to keep the situation involving the bad apple from the public eye. And powerful police unions often fight tooth and nail to protect the officers from discipline and for their misconduct. So the agencies take the path of least resistance, and they quietly let the officer go. And thereby they avoid the public scrutiny and big expense fight with the union. Here's David Loy of the First Amendment Coalition.
So historically, California was an almost complete black hole of police transparency. The public was entitled to virtually no information about the conduct of law enforcement.
So these bad apple cops weren't held accountable and are free to continue their career in another uniform. Research shows a bad apple at one agency becomes a bad apple at another agency.
So it seems that you have allegedly found an example of this here in San Diego. So tell us about Jonathan Laroche.
Well, in July of this year, the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Diego announced a case against Laroche. Now, he was a detective with Navy Criminal Investigations, NCIS. It's an agency staffed by civilians, and they do the investigate crime for the Navy against Marine Corps and Navy personnel.
Yeah.
It was a plea agreement. He was charged with two things. The first was the use of excessive force. Laroche used a chokehold on a handcuffed prisoner who passed out for about 17 seconds. And later in the intake process, when the prisoner was handcuffed to a table, Laroche grabbed him by his throat and banged his head against the wall. And Laroche was also charged with filing a false statement, which I found peculiar, meaning he lied on his job application to get into NCIS.
So federal authorities say that Laroche lied to the Navy. So what specifically did he lie about?
Well, he told the Navy about his history with the El Cajon Police Department. Apparently NCIS never checked. We did with Internal Affairs. KPBS requested documents, and Internal Affairs provided us documents into two different investigations, showing that in both cases it was a use of improper force. And in addition, he turned off his camera they were supposed to have on. In one case, Laroche dropped a handcuffed prisoner to the ground at San Diego County Jail and then bounced his face off the concrete. Laroche had turned off the body-worn camera, according to the records, but video from the inside of the jail showed the prisoner posed no threat.
So what lies ahead for Laroche now?
Well, there's also the Las Colinas video. I meant to tell you about that. That's another case involving Laroche, who was treatment of a female prisoner at Las Colinas. She was also handcuffed. He held her down by the neck after he flipped her over his leg.
Yes, and we have video of that showing right now. Yeah.
Yeah, Laroche claimed the prisoner tried to kick him, but the camera in the jail's intake area, which we were able to acquire, show that any behaviors on her part, none of her behaviors warranted the kind of treatment he had given to that female prisoner.
So JW, what lies ahead for him now?
Well, he's sentenced in November, and for his crimes, which he's copped a plea to, for the false statements he made about his work, employment history, it's a $250,000 fine and 5 years in Fed prison. And for his treatment of the federal prisoner, he faces 1 year in prison and a $100,000 fine. Sentencing for Laroche will include an agreement that he leaves the NCIS and not apply for any other job in law enforcement.
JW, I know you're going to continue to follow this story. As always, impressive reporting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayo.